Hey there, how there, ho there. Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to yet another Cutter Top 10 football video. And it's Super Bowl week, and we're going to be talking to you about the top 10 gaffes in Super Bowl history. Not everything in the Super Bowl can be turned into gold and all that. So we got some fantastic mistakes and all that you want to see and you want to get through. So we're going to give you the massive stuff and all that as I am kind of doing the rankings and all that right off the top of my head. So how you get this far is that if the moment happened that didn't really affect the game, it's ranked lower than normal. So there will be some stuff you won't agree on, but that's okay. All right. Number 10 is Tom Brady's misplay Super Bowl 52. So the Patriots were playing the Eagles in the Super Bowl. They won the 2017 Super Bowl. And why I can't remember the team that beat is beyond me. Oh yeah, Atlanta. Well, we'll talk about that later. But anyhow, the Patriots were trying to go back to back, becoming the first NFL team since the Patriots in 2005 to do back to back. They got taken out by the Eagles and Nick Foles in the Philly Special, which will be part of the top 10 Super Bowl plays of all time list. But we're taking a look at the gaffes. So near the end of the game, the Pats decided to do their own trick play, like a flea flicker, and Wes Welker was going to throw the ball, and Tom Brady was going to catch it and maybe extend a drive. But somehow, in some way, Brady didn't see the ball coming, and the ball went point. It dropped. He dropped it, and the Patriots lost to the Eagles. So, Patriots losing. Although in 2019 they went back to the Super Bowl and beat the Rams in one of the most defensive efforts around, but it happened. All right. Number 9 is Furman Thomas mishandles his helmet. So Furman Thomas and the Buffalo Bills were coming back after their Super Bowl gaffe in 1991, which will be on this list. So the Bills took care of John Elway and the Denver Broncos by a score of 10-7 in the second lowest AFC title game by points. Only the one in 1983, that's how the Dolphins beat the Jets 14-0 on A.J. Dewey's 3 interceptions, was the gold standard for utility. In fact, the Patriots Broncos this year, 2016, was 2026. What am I thinking? Is 10-7. Although it must be said that Bo Nix, if he was healthy, the Patriots probably would have got their butts handed to them. And that's saying so from a Patriots fan. Nevertheless, Furman Thomas was carrying the load at running back. So anyway, Furman Thomas and the Bills were going to get the coin flip. They were going to go first. But somehow there was no Furman Thomas. There was Kenneth Davis in the huddle. What the heck happened to Furman Thomas? He seemed healthy. There was one tiny little problem. Furman Thomas had a ritual that he would put his helmet down at the 30-yard line. Unfortunately, because Harry Connick Jr. was singing the national anthem, someone from Connick Jr.'s entourage must have moved the helmet and Furman couldn't find it. Why? He didn't have a backup helmet on the sideline or something? I don't know why. But yeah, Furman couldn't find his helmet, so he missed the first few plays. And some say that actually ruined Buffalo's chances. Although this ranks low because, it didn't really do anything. It was number 9. Number 8 is Leon Lett's fumble. I know a lot of you are saying this is too low. Well, as I said, one of the criteria is, did it ruin Dallas in the Super Bowl? The answer is no. So that's why it drops downwards. So anyway, the Cowboys were having the Buffalo Bills for lunch, dinner, and the snack on the flight home, as they say. They were up 52-17 on the Bills when Leon Lett managed to make Frank Wright fumble. And, well, there was a fumble on Frank Wright, and then Leon Lett scooped it up at the 40, at his own 40, and then was trying to go coast to coast with butter and toast. But somehow Leon Lett decided to showboat and stick out his hand with the ball. Don Beebe, number 82 in your books, somehow tracked Leon Lett down, smacked the ball from Leon's hand, and it went through the end zone for a touchback. So the Bills would get the ball back at their 20-yard line. But no one knew that Don Beebe was going to actually not give up on the play. After all, Dallas had this game won. It did have a little bit of consequence because Leon Lett and that he had not done that, Dallas would have scored 59 points, which would have been a new record for one team in the Super Bowl. The record is still the Niners 55 against the Broncos in 1990. But it didn't matter in the end. Leon Lett, they could laugh it off. Unfortunately, though, he made another error on Thanksgiving Day 1993 that saw him, well, after a blocked field goal, Dallas didn't want to touch it because then the play would have been thrown dead. But Leon Lett, in his pursuit for the football, slid and touched the football, which Miami recovered at the 1, kicked the field goal, win the game. But it wasn't really too bad of a gaffe because Dallas did win the Super Bowl, and they still were the number 1 team in the NFC. And funny as it sounded, that actually was the death knell for Miami season. The Dolphins were 9-2, yeah, but they lost the next 5 games. Well, the last one was controversial because they would have had a touchdown catch, but instant replay was not there. Nevertheless, number 7 is Janet Jackson's wardrobe malfunction. I know you'll be thinking that's too low, but no. Well, due to a lot of gaps and also due to the fact that this was at halftime. This didn't have anything to do with the game. It lost some points. So anyway, Super Bowl 38 was shaping up to be big. It was no score after the first quarter, which was unusual. The Pats were narrowly up on Carolina, and then halftime happened. Personally, I was actually watching the Super Bowl, but I actually was not really involved in the Super Bowl. I was actually reading a football book that my sister got for me. And, I was reading all this stuff and all that. I didn't really pay attention to the halftime show. I had it as background noise. But unbeknownst to me, during the last number of the halftime show, Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson were dancing and all that. And then Timberlake sang the song Rock Your Body. And then he says, I'm going to have you naked by the end of the song. And he was trying to rip Janet's costume for a brassiere. But he ended up ripping it too hard and it exposed Janet's right nipple and right breast. So unfortunately, that pretty much meant that, the world saw a nipple on TV or a breast on TV. What's even more crazy was that they actually had to delay the second half because some asshole fan decided to run onto the field. Fortunately, they caught him. But yeah, Janet Jackson's wardrobe malfunction was huge. It didn't matter that the Patriots beat the Panthers 32-29 on an unintentional field goal last second in Houston. All that matters was Timberlake and Janet Jackson's thing and all that. The clip was played worldwide. Everyone wanted to find their own clip. That kind of started the YouTube phenomenon because YouTube would basically have like all these clips of shows and all that you need to see. Like a massive library. But yeah, Janet Jackson's wardrobe malfunction was huge. It actually bit Janet Jackson a lot more than Justin Timberlake. Janet was blacklisted. She was not invited to the Grammys. Basically, people refused to play her songs and all that. They blamed Janet. Timberlake did not do a good job in damage control. He basically hemmed and hawed and all that. Timberlake was kind of given a free rein and all that. His career didn't really stall that badly. Everyone thought there was a massive double standard, not just because Janet Jackson was a female, but because Janet Jackson was black, which I find total bullshit. CBS was fined over $500,000 for the thing. FCC made the 5-second delay to all sports broadcasts, and even more embarrassing, halftime shows would become more like old. For years, the NFL played it safe at halftime, having people like Paul McCartney and Prince perform. Like in the Rolling Stones, aging people because they think they're not going to make any kind of controversial statement and all that. The NFL panicked. They had reason to panic in a sense, but Justin Timberlake didn't help out. Anyway, number 6 is Garo Yepremi in Super Bowl 7. The Miami Dolphins were coming into this game undefeated. It was a 14-game regular season in 1972. They won all 14 games, and they won their 2 playoff games, their divisional round and their AFC title game against Pittsburgh. People forget that despite Miami going undefeated and having a great defense, Bob Greasy, their main quarterback, was hurt. He injured himself in week 4, and Earl Morrall, named one of the best backup quarterbacks, if not the best backup quarterback of all time, guided Miami through the rest of the season, and Greasy came back in the playoffs. I mean, it would, yeah, Miami had lost a few games because Greasy was not at pivot. That's different. Well, Miami did have the three-headed running attack of Mercury, Morris, Jim Kick, and Nursonka. But still, they could have easily faltered with Greasy out and Morrow in. Morrow came in for an injured Johnny Unitas and helped the Colts get to Super Bowl III. He had a bad Super Bowl, but still, I mean, the Colts could have faltered without Johnny Unitas. Nevertheless, Miami was playing Washington. In fact, they actually gave Washington the Vegas odds to win the match, thinking that Miami just got lucky. However, Miami was up 14-0, and Gary Yepremian was trying for a field goal to make it 17-0, which would have been ironic because that's what Miami would have been, 17-0. Unfortunately, the kick was blocked, and Yepremian, in a panic, decided to try to throw the ball down the field, but it bobbled, and it landed squarely into the hands of Mike Bass, number 41 for Washington, and he scored a touchdown. Miami went, damn! Fortunately for Yepremian, the Dolphins won the game. It would have been a whole lot different if the Dolphins had lost because of that. Number 5 is the Titans coming oh so freaking close to winning the Super Bowl in 2000. When you look at things at the surface, is that, it's a gaffe by the Titans. Well, the Rams were big. The Rams weren't even supposed to make the Super Bowl. Now, here's the thing. Before this year, 2026, they said that the Rams-Titans had the biggest combined odds of a Super Bowl matchup, meaning that, a lot of people didn't think the Rams or the Titans were going to get to the Super Bowl. That they had the biggest combined numbers before this year's Seahawks-Patriots debacle. Well, it hasn't been played yet as of this taping. But anyway, yeah, so the Titans took on the Rams. The Titans were 13-3. They had to play in the wild card game because there was one team better than them in the division. That was the 14-2 Jacksonville Jaguars. So the Titans had to play the wild card round. They were involved in the Music City Miracle with those laterals against Buffalo. And then they won the AFC title game in Jacksonville, screwing Jacksonville for the third time because all 3 Jacksonville losses, 2 in the regular season, 1 in the playoffs, were to the same team, the Titans. Meanwhile, the Rams had a tough time because Trent Green was meant to be the quarterback, but he injured himself, so they had to rely on this guy from Northern Iowa who's an Arena Football League guy, NFL Europe, and also a night grocery clerk at Hy-Vee. And by the name of Kurt Warner. However, Dick Vermeil says we will rally around Kurt Warner, and it worked. The Rams had Marshall Faulk in a trade from the Colts. They had great guys like Az Hakim, Torrey Holt, and Isaac Bruce. It worked out, and the Rams got to the Super Bowl to face the Titans, the greatest show on turf, they called it. So anyway, the Rams were up 23-16 with a few seconds left when Steve McNair threw a ball to Kevin Dyson, who was trying to desperately to stretch the ball across the goal line to potentially tie the game and send it to overtime. But he missed by 1 yard thanks to Mike Jones. What a generic name. But, that was big. That one. Number 3. No, sorry. Number 4 is Jackie Smith's botch pass, Super Bowl 13. So Super Bowl 13 shaped up to be one of the greatest ever. They said that it was the one Super Bowl with the most combined Hall of Famers ever. It was Super Bowl 13, Dallas and Pittsburgh. They had met in 1976 in a classic, and then in 1979 they were going to meet each other at Super Bowl 13. Pittsburgh surviving Houston and ruining Houston's chances thanks to a missed touchdown catch by Mike Renfro. And the Cowboys were back. Come on. So anyway, Dallas and Pittsburgh were facing each other, and it looked like a big touchdown for Dallas. They were at the 3-yard line. Roger Staubach threw the ball straight to Jackie Smith, who was wide freaking open, and boom, he missed the pass and all that. It's kind of weird because 10 years prior, someone else was wide open in the end zone, but he didn't get a chance to catch the ball. I'm talking about Jimmy Orr. But anyway, Jackie had the ball in his hands and he dropped it. The Cowboys had to settle for a field goal, and that was actually the difference. The 7 points they would have had, subtract three, was 4 extra points. And guess how many points Dallas lost by? 4 points. So anyway, Dallas and Pittsburgh would have been tied. But yeah, Jackie Smith missed that pass. And Jackie Smith bemoaned the fact that he came out of retirement. He was playing with the Cardinals franchise, one of the best tight ends ever, and then he went to Dallas. He bemoaned having it. But thankfully, the team did not blame him, not even Landry. So yeah, Jackie Smith, it was just haunting him. It would haunt him. Number 3 is the Seahawks botching it at the goal line, Super Bowl 49. So Super Bowl 49 had the Seahawks and Patriots battle each other. The Seahawks were trying to go back to back and trying to become the first team since the Patriots to do so. Go, Jeffrey, go. Anyway, Seattle got the ball, and the Patriots were winning. Seattle was marching down the field. People forget about this, but Seattle had a great. Russell Wilson made an improbable pass to Jermaine Kearse, who bobbled the ball, and the ball kept hanging in there, and then somehow he managed to make the catch. So Seattle went down to the 1 yard line. All they had to do was give Marshawn Lynch or someone else the ball to run into the end zone. Seahawks probably win the Super Bowl. But no, they decided to pass, thinking that New England would be ready for Marshawn Lynch play. So they tried to pass, but somehow the pass missed, and Malcolm Butler anticipated the ball, picked it off, and the Patriots won Super Bowl 49 and all that. I don't know this. Yeah, Patriots Seahawks rematch 11 years later. It's going to be the Aspie Bowl Part 2 because both me and Jason Lundgren are Stone Cold fans. Me for the Pats, him for the Seahawks. We'll see. We'll see. Number 2 is the choke job by the Atlanta Falcons in Super Bowl 51. So the Atlanta Falcons were high on things. They were going to get to their second Super Bowl in history. 99 was their other Super Bowl. They had Matt Ryan, the Super Bowl MVP, the NFL MVP, and it looked like it was going to be game, set, match and all that because the Patriots seemed to have some missteps. But the Falcons were at 28-3. Seeing this, I kind of turned off the TVs knowing that the Patriots were getting their asses handed to them. So I just basically didn't see anything or even go online until I figured the game's over 10 o'clock. And then I hear the game's going to overtime. Well, how? And I was shocked too. Of course, I saw overtime, which saw the Patriots beat the Falcons on a James White touchdown run. Like, how did that happen? So I watched the highlights. And seemingly the Falcons passed too often. The Falcons could have just ran the clock down with their running attack, but they didn't really do so well. The Patriots made some great plays. Julian Edelman almost had a catch taken away from the turf by the turf, but a few 2-point conversions later, the Pats were going to the Super Bowl. We're tying the Super Bowl with the Falcons. And all New England had to do was win the game. And they did. Patriots catchy. And they were going to the Super Bowl. And they won the Super Bowl. And number 1 is Scott Norwood's wide right. It had to be that. I know it could have been the Falcons one, but it had to be wide right. No disrespect to the Buffalo Bill fans and all that, but this was a game-winning drive. So the Buffalo Bills had the K gun or the run and shoot, well, the no huddle offense, and they worked in perfection. They crushed the LA Raiders in the Super Bowl. In the AFC title game. Went to the Super Bowl against the New York Giants, who were facing adversity because Phil Simms, their star quarterback, was hurt. So Jeff Hostetler had to come in. And the Giants shocked everyone by beating the Niners in San Francisco in the NFC title game. They knocked Joe Montana out of the game, although they didn't know that it would knock Montana out for almost the whole season, except for the last game of the season against the Lions. Roger Craig made a terrible fumble, and the Giants got 5 field goals from Matt Barr, which were enough to beat the Niners 15-13. Super Bowl 25 in Tampa was huge. Buffalo was hoping to take down the Giants. Everyone wanted Buffalo to win because that city seems cursed and all that. But then the Giants decided to do something big. Parcells and Belichick decided to make a plan to, time of possession. Keep the ball. Ball control was all they needed because they would make Buffalo not take a lot of time on possession. Jeff Hostetler did a smart thing by taking a sack from Bruce Smith in the end zone rather than trying to make a play. Because if he made a play and he mishandled it, Buffalo could score a touchdown. So it only cost him 2 points. Score was 20-19. Jim Kelly did have enough time, and with 8 seconds left, they were aiming for a 46-yard field goal by Scott Norwood. Now here's the thing, though. The Bills could have just ran up the gut, called timeout, and take a few seconds off the clock, sure, but it would have given Norwood more yards. So Norwood tried from 48 yards on grass, which he was not used to because Buffalo kicks on turf. And sure enough, the ball went wide right and cost the Bills the Super Bowl. The Giants ended up winning by 1 freaking point, which is the lowest margin you can lose by. What's even worse is that Buffalo got to 3 more Super Bowls, but they lost all of them. Norwood would only be sticking around for the second Super Bowl, and then he was gone for Oakville Steve Christie to be the third and fourth Super Bowl guy for Buffalo for kicking. Nobody really impressed Scott Norwood. They hated Scott Norwood in a sense. And Buffalo remains cursed with sports and all that, especially the Bills being cursed by the Broncos in the AFC divisional round this year. So what can I say? Wide right just started a bad dynasty. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond, a Duke.